4th November 2025, a heartbreaking story emerged. A well-wisher stepped in to clear the hospital bills of 110 women who had been detained after giving birth. Some had even lost their newborns, yet they were still held because they could not afford their delivery fees. And sadly, this wasn't an isolated case. Across Kenya, more and more women continue to be detained in hospitals due to unpaid maternity bills. For many years, the Linda Mama program protected women from this exact situation. Pregnant women could access antenatal care and deliver safely without worrying about cost. This reduced maternal and infant deaths significantly. But with the shift to Linda Jamii, many families say things have changed. Concerns have been raised that the new program is leaving vulnerable women behind and contributing to rising hospital detentions. So the truth is, we don't just need more well wishes, we need a lasting solution. To understand where we're going, we must look at where we came from. Long before modern hospitals existed, African communities relied on traditional birth attendants, TBAs, to support women through pregnancy, labor, and birth. With colonization came modern midwifery practices, hospitals, and improved medical outcomes. But advanced healthcare also became more expensive and in many rural areas out of reach. Today, with limited facilities in places like northern Kenya, many women still rely completely on traditional birth attendants. In African societies, pregnancy was more than a biological process. It was a blessing, an honor, and a continuation of a lineage. Children were a source of pride, security, wealth, and legacy. And because of this deep value, strict cultural practices were observed to protect both mother and child. Now, let's look at the cultural beliefs during pregnancy. In many communities, a praying mantis appearing in a woman's heart was seen as a sign of pregnancy or a blessing soon to come. Once a woman confirmed her pregnancy, she was expected to share the news quietly only with her husband, her mother-in-law, and her maternal grandmother. To protect herself and her unborn child, she wore amulets and charms meant to ward off evil spirits and witchcraft. She avoided gossiping, quarrels, and emotional stress since all these were believed to affect the baby. Funerals and even some weddings were off limits. Heavy tasks were avoided, and certain foods like eggs, snails, or avocados were restricted in line with cultural beliefs. In some communities, she had to avoid crossing tight ropes, killing animals, and working at night to protect herself from spiritual harm. The husband, too, had cultural responsibilities. He was expected to remain loyal because infidelity was believed to bring misfortune to the mother and the unborn child. Now, let's look at the beliefs surrounding newborns. Once the baby was born, they were protected with waist beads to ward off evil. The newborn was taken to the grandmother for blessings, often symbolized through a sacred gesture. For the first few days, the baby stayed indoors to avoid evil eyes. If the child cried too much during the first week, elders believed the name wasn't right and needed to be changed. Naming was deeply symbolic, tied to seasons, event, or the exact time of birth. The baby's first hair was shaved by the grandmother, sometimes in the presence of the father, and the dried umbilical cord was sewn into the baby's vest for protection. A baby wasn't bathed until the navel had healed completely. Now let's look at the conception and the role of traditional birth attendants. When a woman missed her period and began showing signs like morning sickness, the community already understood what was happening. Pregnancy became a shared responsibility of the husband, the family, and the wider community. A respected TBA was immediately informed. She guided the mother from conception through antenatal care, labor, and postpartum recovery. Going ahead to antenatal period. During the antenatal care, traditional birth attendants visited the expectant mother regularly, advising her on diet, rest, and cultural expectations. To track the pregnancy, women marked trees every full moon. After the ninth mark, they prepared for childbirth. Some communities tied a special grass around the woman's waist. The tighter it became, the more the child was believed to grow, helping the mother to stay aware of her progress. Sex during pregnancy varied across cultures. Some communities prohibited it to protect the baby's innocence, others allowed it early in pregnancy or in the final trimester. Going on to the first stage of labor, when labor began, it was kept quiet to avoid attracting evil spirits. The TBA prepared a clean bathing space, usually the woman's hut, the TBA's hut, or the grandmother's home. Herbs were boiled to ease pain. In Ethiopia, for example, TBAs even rubbed butter on the abdomen, while some women danced to reduce labor discomfort. During the second stage of labor, as the cervix fully dilated, TBAs guided the mother through childbirth. Men and anyone considered impure were kept out to avoid spiritual complications. In some regions, women gave birth on stones to symbolize strength. In others, they labored alone because birth blood was believed to be cursed. Now, let's look at the maternal birthing positions. Unlike the standard hospital position used today, TBAs allowed women to choose the position that felt natural. These positions often led to better contractions, shorter labor, and less fetal distress. In today's hospital, women mostly deliver in supine position, lying on their backs, which, while medically convenient, is not always the most comfortable or effective position for the mother. During the third stage, which is delivering of the placenta, after the birth of the baby, the placenta had to be delivered within 5 minutes. TBAs massaged the abdomen to help with this process. Placenta disposal was deeply cultural. Some families buried them, others burned them, and others released them into the rivers. It had to be handled carefully to prevent spiritual harm or sorcery, which would lead to future miscarriages or the death of the newborn baby. Now, going on to the postnatal period. In the postpartum period, the new mother was cared for closely by her family. She avoided heavy tasks and ate specific foods to boost breast milk production and healing. Sex remained prohibited until her body fully healed, confirmed after 2 menstrual cycles. So now, after looking at this whole process from conception to the antenatal period, childbirth, and postnatal, I believe that the TBAs knew the basics of handling pregnancy in the African society. And after looking at the deep traditions, practices, and knowledge that TBAs hold, one thing is clear. Traditional birth attendants already understood the do's and don'ts of childbirth. With proper medical training, they can bridge the gap in maternal health care, especially in underserved regions where hospitals are scarce. If Kenya embraced a training program for traditional birth attendants, we would not only preserve our culture, we would save the lives of mothers and babies who are currently left with no alternative. So, Hope you have learned something from today's video and see you all in the next. Thank you.